This is the Khmer Times News. My name is Paolo Bonini, and these are your headlines. A depraved criminal is extremely dangerous and on the run. Yet more death on the nation's roads, and I get a little upset. And the world's biggest killer may well be in retreat. But firstly, it's our headline story, and it's all about this guy. Now, take a good look. He does not really look like the violent type, does he? Maybe it's the photo, but he looks somewhat benevolent. And that is what many believed, including an international newspaper that wrote of him, Sathir Arun. Commitment to his orphans draws much support. He is slight, he is gentle, and a very softly spoken man. The problem is, he may well be softly spoken, but this man is nothing less than pure evil, for he is a child rapist. Worse still, he is on the loose and is currently on the run. The fugitive child rapist has been convicted to 22 years in jail, but as of yet, he has not been arrested by the police. Sathir Arun was once the director of an NGO that was to care for orphan children, but rather than care for them, for 7 long years, he sexually abused them. He had over 50 children in his care, and his charges include raping 2 girls, one of whom was only 6 years old. The victims testified in court that the sexual assault started when they were very small children, and they continued until they were teenagers. Their nightmares dragged on for many long years, and all the time the abuser was being lauded as a mild, kind and gentle man, a man whose kindness was something to be admired. He was not just abusing children, though, for he also stole $1.5 million in cash so that he could live like a king. The court case took 5 long years to prosecute him, and the legal representative of the school where the abuse took place said, "We are pleased the appeal court has followed the rule of law. However, we are appalled that the police have been unable to arrest this convicted criminal." The legal counsel went on to say, "We have asked the Minister of Interior to take action, and many months have passed with no justice for these children." The police's response was simple, saying that the defendant had fled, and despite an ongoing investigation, they have no idea where he is hiding. The case is tragic on so many levels, so many young lives brutally shattered by this monster who created his own nightmare world, one that he controlled absolutely. And this nightmare still goes on, as somewhere out there, this man still stalks the land. And no child is safe until he is captured. On this week's Crime Desk, 2 very senior officers arrested for taking bribes to help drug-dealing murderers evade the law. And we have death on the roads and a plea from me to you. The headline this week said it all. Deputy Commander of Takao Provincial Military Police arrested for accepting bribes in exchange for not cracking down on drugs and gambling. Now, personally, I would have gone for a shorter, much punchier headline, but the tale is basically this. A spokesman for the military police has now stated that the deputy commander of Takao's military police, as well as a lieutenant general of the Narcotics Bureau, have both been involved in accepting bribes. The military police stated that in early November of 2024, the Kandal military police investigated a murder case in Kandal, and subsequently they arrested 4 people in connection with a case where a man was tortured to death. The case also involved illegal drug trafficking. Police officers not only arrested the suspects, they also seized 7 kilos of drugs and numerous weapons. But this case, mysteriously, was never resolved. It languished in a file. Reports had been written, but there was absolutely no action to send these murdering drug dealers to court. Legal foul play was soon suspected. An investigation by the Kandal Provincial Military Police uncovered that these 4 criminals seemed to have been let off the hook. So they requested that the National Military Police conduct an investigation. It was then that the 2 officers were arrested, and they now face very serious charges of accepting bribes and perverting the course of justice. Now, as to how long these officers were corrupting the rule of law or how much money they made is currently not known. But what is very clear is these 2 extremely senior officials have an awful lot of explaining to do. So we've just had 2 very senior military officers involved in a bribery case that was entangled in both drugs and murder. Well, it was not just them this week, as we also saw this headline. Rapper Rathku killed in traffic accident. Now, this news did shock many of his fans, as the beloved musician was widely admired. And when the follow-up headline came along a few days later, the identity of the killer was to shock everyone. Now, I will tell you who killed him in just a moment, but first the crime itself. The Cambodian French rapper and producer, widely known as Rathku, was killed after being hit by a vehicle in yet another hit-and-run incident. He was 25 years old. The accident took place at 1:20 a.m. in Phnom Penh, when a Lexus car slammed into the victim's motorcycle. And as is traditional, the driver of the Lexus saw the victim bleeding on the tarmac, and he did absolutely nothing to try and help him as he lay there dying. The driver, after all, was too busy fleeing the scene. Now, here is the part where I reveal the driver of the car that killed this young man. His name is Lim Nang. Mr. Nang is 35 years old, and guess what Mr. Nang does for a living? Well, quite incredibly, he is a police officer. Nang has now been charged with careless driving, causing the death of another person, and faces between 2 to 3 years in prison if convicted. But there is a lesson to be learnt by us all here. The dead man made a mistake, a big one. He was not wearing a helmet, and just maybe that helmet would have saved his life. I was hit by a truck in Thailand only 2 weeks ago. My motorcycle took $5,000 worth of damage, but I was wearing a helmet, and I walked away. Rathku was not wearing a helmet, and he went to the morgue. So let us equalize the yin and the yang of the universe by having another killer hit-and-run driver, but this time we will relish in the fact that this killer driver was caught. The headline was this: Update. Deputy Governor says driver of his car involved in crash that killed 3 has been arrested. And just as bloody well, as I am fed up with reading of hit-and-run drivers, as it is so very common. In fact, when I type my list of stories of the week, I just abbreviate it to H&RD, hit-and-run driver, as I have to type those words so very often. In this particular case, that will end with me preaching at you. 3 people died and another one was very seriously injured in an accident on a stretch of red gravel road at the foot of Cabal Mountain. It was on Tuesday afternoon that a brown Toyota car hit a motorcycle carrying 4 people. It struck them with such force that 3 of those 4 on that motorcycle died instantly. Now, let's just take a moment to review that. Humans can take all sorts of punishment. People fall off buildings and they get savagely beaten all the time, and they survive. So to have 3 people killed in one instance on a bike is simply incredible. But is it? You see, I know something you do not. I have looked at the accident photos and I have noticed something missing from this horrific incident. I could see the dead bodies laying lifeless on that gravel road, the bodies of those who would leave their families sobbing uncontrollably. And it is those bodies that told me a story. That story was exactly the same as our dead rapper from the previous story, as again, they were also not wearing motorcycle helmets. Like I said, I walked away from my accident 2 weeks ago that smashed my bike to bits. My legs ached, as did my back, but I walked away. None of those people involved did. They are all dead. Here is a photo of my helmet. It cost me $250, and next to it is a photo of me out cycling a few days after the accident. Please notice how I'm not dead. I am not even a little dead. In fact, it's safe to say I'm very much in the alive column by full 100%. But those without the helmets, they are all in the morgue. So tell me, do you comprehend the message I send? Let us bow out of this week's lineup of mayhem and of carnage with some good news. And it comes from the biggest killer on earth. Okay, so that did not sound so cheery, but it is. For the headline reads, Cambodia achieves 74% drop in malaria cases in 2024. Crikey. That is one hell of a drop, and when one considers how god-awful malaria is, that is well worthy of celebration. As there are, and wait for it as this number is really huge, in 2023 there were 263 million cases of malaria, and of those 263 million, 600,000 people died. Malaria is by far the biggest killer the world has ever seen. It is estimated to have killed 50 to 60 billion people throughout its history, and that is about half of all humans that have ever lived. Crikey with a crikey topping. That really is staggering. So when I say it's well worth celebrating Cambodia's recent success of a 74% reduction in malaria, I think you can now see why. Malaria cases fell from 1,380 in 2023 to just 350 in 2024. And Cambodia has recorded 0 malaria deaths since 2018. And that is a real benchmark and is something to be proud of. The current strategy against malaria aims to achieve 0 cases in all geographies across the country by 2025. And considering there were nearly 200,000 reported malaria cases per year and 800 deaths annually, the progress being made is quite simply staggering. It really is a story to warm the heart, as the world's most deadly killer is finally being banished from the land. It's time to have a look ahead and see what the weather has in store for us next week. And here we are at the weather, but to our photo of the week, just to make the weather a bit more interesting, and it's me after that motorcycle accident I referred to earlier. This guy is a customs official. He's really fantastic, wonderfully helpful. I love him to bits. I see him on a regular basis because I travel an awful lot. And with that motorcycle accident, potentially my helmet did save my life, and that is why I brought it up in the news. It's all very well looking at all these dead people on the road and looking at the hit and run drivers, but I'll tell you what, we've got to do something as well. Note what I said there. That helmet cost me $250. Buy a decent helmet. Stop buying helmets that cost $12. That's all the preaching I'm doing in this news review. So it's over to the weather itself, which needless to say I don't have up on the screen right now. I've got it in the upright position, and that makes everyone else a lot happier. And what do we got? Ooh, look at that. Just a smattering of rain in the middle of the week, maybe. You probably won't see it. But we do have humidity rising to 50%, and the temperature highs are going to be a cracking 31 degrees. This has been the Khmer Times News. Please do subscribe and comment and stay up to date with all the breaking news by following us on both Facebook and Telegram. This has been Paolo Bonini, and that was the week that was. I'll see you next weekend for your weekly roundup.